I personally I've not been a huge believer in philanthropy. I believe in impact for profit. So,
Right.
so if you can create a business that is profitable, has makes sense from a business perspective, but has a positive effect on the world, hell yeah, I'll sign up for that any day of the week, right? So there's also that element.
Welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. Just sit back, relax, and learn from the leaders of today. It's a journey. Each one is different, unique, inspiring. Let's get started. This episode is powered by J Ventures, a community-driven VC fund in Silicon Valley, in partnership with Lomitech, and sponsored by Homeward Ventures, Hippo Insurance, Upwest, Hillel at Stanford, Leap, and Birthright Excel, and in media partnership with CTech. Welcome to another episode of 20-Minute Leaders. Today, we welcome Ori Weihs, founder of Team Odeon. Ori is an experienced founder, executive, and investor. He founded XLMedia PLC, a London-listed performance marketing company in 2003, led it through its IPO, and ran it until 2019. Ori is an investor in companies such as Mews, Medorion, Gigantic, and more. His focus is on strong founder-led teams with disruptive technology and sector-specific expertise.
Ori Weihs, welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. How are you today?
Pretty good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. I'm looking forward to talking about your journey, talking about the gaming space, along with a bunch of other spaces that you are part of, transitioning to the education world. You have such a long history in the tech scene and the startup scene, both as an investor and as a founder. You've invested in some of the most exciting companies that I hear about on a daily basis now. But I'm also excited to hear about who you are and as a person, and what motivates you, and how, and the convictions that you've come to over the years and where you are today. So, Ori, take me back a little bit across your journey and share with me a little bit about how what your career looked like, from your perspective.
Sure. I'm going to try to make it quick because it can take me some time, but I'm happy the door's locked, so we won't have any kid running in here, which is usually what happens.
Beautiful.
So I indirectly stumbled into online gambling of all industries somewhere back in 2002. It seems to be a repeating theme. A lot of people somehow ended up there miraculously. So I actually was, funny thing is, I was 1 year after the army. I was living in Israel, kind of looking for what to do with myself. Everyone I knew ended up growing long hair and flying to India. I did not. I ended up keeping my short hair and moving to Cyprus to work for an online casino.
Wow.
Funny thing is that I, at the time, did not know anything about either gambling or online or anything that loosely relates to the topic, but a couple of friends from my hometown, from Haifa, they launched a company. These are guys that have went on later on to found a bunch of interesting things as well. And I ended up being their employee number, 5, 6, something like that. Learning as we go. Spent about a year in Cyprus, after which my mom pretty much decided for me I need to go back to Israel and study, because that's what you do. And if you don't do that, you're in big trouble. So I came back to Israel, made a deal that I'll kind of keep working as a freelancer, and that was kind of where XLMedia, what would become WebPals, XLMedia kind of spawned. I pretty much, what I did was running an affiliate network and developing some comparison site, SEO site, stuff like that for the gaming industry or gambling. Predominantly in Europe, pretty much was a solo operation for a couple of years, but started to scale up pretty fast. I was very, very fortunate to, I guess, be in the right place in the right time. Things really worked. 2008, and I'm kind of skipped 5 years there. 2008, I decided to merge with a couple other guys. One of them was my next door neighbor in Haifa, and the third one was his buddy from the tank. And we decided to merge. That was what would become Excel and WebPals. And we continued together, 3 guys in the basement in Tel Aviv. Again, fast forwarding a bit, 2012, the business is making, trying to do the numbers here, 8 digits profit per year US, like just everything. We're very fortunate and we worked really hard at it. And I have a lot to talk about it, but that's kind of the high level. We sold the majority share of it to a private equity group. We stayed on board. I was CEO of the Topco, the holding group, since day one, since 2003. So we kept a pretty big share in it. We listed it in London in 2014.
Amazing.
Which is a kind of journey. I'm happy to talk about that. We just talked about formal versus it.
Yeah, no,
we talked about formal versus informal.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'd love to hear about, what was it like for you, both as you transition, as CEO of this holding company, and you're thinking through the ambitions, from 3 guys in a garage. Like, what was that experience like for you?
Well, it wasn't a garage; it was a real basement.
A real basement.
Yeah.
Not like the garage
Plus, we had
facilities.
we had plaster walls. You can hear everything, so it was a real basement. But look, I have to be honest. The idea of listing wasn't actually mine. It was the private equity guys. Apparently, when they bought into the company, they kind of decided we're going to do that. They didn't even bother to tell me.
Wow.
They told me when it said, okay, you're going to have to start going to London a lot. I was like, why? Yeah, we're listing. I'm like, okay, sounds like an adventure. Do I need to learn anything? Oh, you'll be fine.
Really?
And it kind
That's
of
how
ended
it
up
went.
like that.
Incredible.
Yeah, pretty much. I was very fortunate that they one of the first things they did after investing was they brought in a CFO, and she apparently was in on the plan. I was not, and she's done this before. She's very experienced. She's been around, and apparently she didn't appreciate my old financial system, which was to check the bank account every month after we paid everyone and see if we have more money than last month. Apparently,
I love
that's
it.
not recognizable accounting system. So
I don't know why. It sounds very reasonable to me.
I didn't go through an MBA, but to me it makes sense, right? So
It worked.
so yeah, so that kind of started the London journey. And all joking aside, London was a great experience for me. Personally, I kind of learned a lot of new things. I spent 5 years up to 2019 running a listed business, which is very, very different than running a non-listed business.
Why was it different? What was different for you in that regard?
First of all, you got to wear a suit, which is a big thing for me. I did not have many suits around. But second of all, you got it kind of changes the way you think about things. We can talk about this for hours, but I think the kind of the big thing is that you're catering not just to the day to day of running a business and caring for your employees, caring for your clients. You have this other group of people, companies, the investors, which actually don't really care so much about your business or your clients. They care about their bottom line and if they can report that they profited from investing in you. And then you've got all the supporting staff, the supporting team around them, analysts, bankers, lawyers, and it takes up a lot of time as well. So I literally spend about, I don't know, a few days a month in London, running around in taxis, meeting investors. Again, great experience, but I would say that the public life is not for every company. You really have to. There's a set of criteria that I think really should be kind of like, okay, if this and this and this is, you can checklist. Okay, do it. Otherwise, think again.
Right.
So yeah, so ran XL until 2019. Left the executive role in the end of 2019. I'm still on the board. I'm still a shareholder. Still involved, not as much anymore. Since 2010, I think it is. I've been investing in a bunch of businesses in a variety of sectors, anything from gaming to SaaS, enterprise software, healthcare. A couple of friends of mine, actually, one of them was on your podcast as well.
Yes.
Mutual friend. So I'm very fortunate to invested in him. I'm going to name drop Ron Brightman, gigantic.
They had some amazing announcements recently, and it sounds like this the company is going to amazing places. But Ori, tell me a little bit about your mentality. Then you're coming off of this experience. You're investing. You find yourself, very deeply rooted into these industries that you were that were very common to you. And I'm gonna fast forward here. Today, you're not in those industries anymore. Right now, maybe you'll be back to them one day. But you're in a little bit of a different place in education, which has a lot of differences from the things that you were doing before. We'll talk also about the similarities, but what made you make this transition?
Well, it's a really good question, and I would say that first of all, look, there's the truth, and then there's the more nicer truth. So the truth is, after leaving Excel, I made an over/under bet with my wife how long I can be idle. We put the betting line at 6 months. I took the over. I was obviously wrong. Should have taken the under, and after about 3 months, I kind of started feeling a bit bored. So the reason I stumbled upon education is there's two things. One is that it seemed to have always been that one that got away, right? Because at Excel, we acquired a variety of businesses. So we went into personal finance, we went into social gaming, we went into web utilities. We looked into a bunch of stuff. We looked at a couple of education businesses. They always looked super interesting, very far from what we do. But they was the ones that got away, right? It either didn't fit financially, or it wasn't the time, or whatever. So I kind of started looking back into that. I had a couple of my investor banker friends take a look at it, do some research, and kind of scope what's going on. And I was very happy to see that it seems to be an industry that could very much benefit from comparison, and I'll be happy to explain why. Plus, it's an industry that it's not saturated yet. It has really, it's lacking some very good products, and it's such an impactful field. I know people use this word impactful a lot, but this, being at the crux of, people making the decision if to study something or not, what to study, will it impact their career positively, employment, these are big things. And I always thought something I was spending a lot of time, and this is kind of going through my mind, is that how do I use what I know and what I've done before for something that has a super positive impact? And I felt like, okay, I used to compare slot machines. Let's be honest, I love gaming. I'm still involved in gaming businesses. It doesn't really impact your life if you're going to choose one slot machine or the other. I got to be honest with myself. But then if you start going up that food chain, right? Okay, so comparing sports books, again, not super impactful, but much more complex, right? It's a lot more data there. Moving on to credit cards, insurance, we did that as well. And then okay, those are big things. What mortgage you're going to take, you're going to carry this weight for a bunch of years. You're going to be paying the bank.
Oh, yeah.
And then it's thought, and then you come from the financial sector, you know how that works, right? So I would say that then I thought, okay, what's next? And for me, education felt like the next step, because especially for Americans, and we target the US, right? Especially for Americans, most of them even this is extra emphasized in grad schools, right? They will take a big student loan, or they will commit a bunch of time, a couple of years, 2, 3, 4 years to a degree, out of some assumption that it will impact their life positively, increase their employability, make them make more money. And they make this decision kind of finger in the air. And that's something that, for me, that's the perfect place for comparison products. There's so much data out there. Bureau of Labor Statistics, ONET, IPEDS. These are government tools that people can't use because they're super complex. If I can help them, if I can give them great content by industry experts and put together all this mess into something they can extrapolate data from, I've done well. And that's where this leads.
So for the context, tell me a little bit about Team Odeon and how you decided that this is the right product to be built, and what has led you to this conviction? Because you have experience thinking through consumer behavior, building successful businesses. Why did you decide on this?
Well, look, first of all, I admit there's a financial validity there. This business makes sense. Universities and OPMs, which is online program managers, they're really keen to get new leads for universities and for degree programs, for vocational schools, that's a separate topic, but very similar. Vocational schools, anything from garage door technician to a nutritionist, right? It's certification courses. So there's definitely a financial there's a business case there. There's a need. There's a lack of. There are good products in the market, but definitely not enough compared to the size of the market. Plus, it really fit me, and this is I admit this sounds a little fluffy, but it kind of fit where I want to be in life, right? So in the sense that I personally, I've not been a huge believer in philanthropy. I believe in impact for profit.
Right.
So if you can create a business that is profitable, has makes sense from a business perspective, but has a positive effect on the world, hell yeah, I'll sign up for that any day of the week, right? So there's also that element.
Right. Dive with me into the business of Team Odeon and both the impact that you're making on student decision making when it comes to their academic studies and professions, as well as then how that leverages into an impactful, profitable business.
Sure. Well, look, it's still early days, so I'll give a disclaimer.
Yes, very early.
We have a lot of things are still kind of in the under the hood still.
Right.
But the idea here is to combine two things: expertly written content, and by expertly written content, everyone throws that around. But here Google has this thing called YMYL, your money, your life. When you write about things that have to do with your money and your life, and education is both, you're under the scrutiny of the most strictest magnifying glass they have. So you got to write, it has to be validated by professors or professionals. It has to be very well thought out, system architecture. Okay, that's one element. Another element is bringing together all this data. So we've spent a lot of time and effort aggregating huge amounts of data from things like the Bureau of Labor Statistics, from companies like PayScale that measure even kind of regional employment stats or employment volatility. I'll give you an example to make it more down to earth, right? You're sitting at home in, Kentucky, right? And you're a registered nurse, and you think, should I get that master's in science in nursing? Okay, let's look. So what I'll give this person will be, okay, Statistically, people in your area, when they take this degree, they will increase their employability by 7%, their average potential earnings by 19%. It will cost them an average of $27,000 per year. So here's the kind of do with that what you want. So try to give people tools to make these decisions. Maybe, just maybe, they'll find out that actually a bachelor's in healthcare administration, they can get to the same job, and they could do it online as opposed to brick and mortar, and actually make more, increase their employability more. It's kind of making sense of it all. I found it hilarious or strange that people kind of jump into these, oh yeah, my parents went to Princeton, so I'm going to go there, right? Or yeah, University of Central Florida, it's really close to my house, it's kind of cheap, I'm going to go there. Okay. Is that really how you want to be making one of the most important decisions you're ever going to make?
Right. Right. Well, when you say it like that, it definitely makes sense.
And astonishing is, but this is not my gut feeling. We did some research. We surveyed people. A lot of them admitted it's really finger in the air.
Yeah.
And that's to me is very surprising.
Now, what is the feeling like working on this versus some previous experiences? How is this different or is it the same as your prior endeavors?
Look, honestly, I love doing what I do because I enjoy the field of creating these comparison products. I admit that I'm really keen to do education because it has all those positive effects. But on the day-to-day, it doesn't feel very different, right?
Right.
Plus, I have to admit, a lot of people say, "Oh, you're fixing your karma," and I admit, when we just started this, when we were just two of us doing this, the Trello board was called Project Karma. I have to admit, it's changed since then. The name. We did change the name because it didn't feel right to keep it. But so yeah, of course, I have absolutely no issues with gaming or finance. It's an industry like any other industry, and I love it. And I feel like I'm always going to be part of it in some capacity. Plus, so many of my friends come from there. But I admit it feels better to be in this because I really feel that we will get back in a couple of years. I'll get these stories of people, yeah, you know what? Using your product made me to make this decision as opposed to that decision. And my life is so much better now. I'm waiting for that. It's going to be a while, but I'm waiting for that. I doubt I'll get that from I doubt I'll get that from the slot machines.
Well, maybe if somebody won a lot of money from one of them, you'll get a really big thank you card.
I did gaming for 18 years. I'm still waiting for that email.
I love it. All right, take me back to your childhood a little bit. Before you were an entrepreneur and you're all about creating things, before you discovered gaming as an industry, what really fascinated you as a child? What sparked your curiosity?
Well, I admit that I was always, I don't know, tough question. I was really creative, not creative. So I was really curious about stuff. I tried a bunch of things. I think the one thing that kind of stuck to me was I loved kind of engagement. I don't know if I'm saying this correct. Engagement with people. My age 14 job was not the typical one. I sold audio systems because I love music. I love audio systems, but it's not about that. I love playing around with the old turntables. That for me was paradise. But I love the fact that I can speak to people. I can understand what they want. I try to fit something for them. I can grill them for an hour and a half about what music they like and why. And that's the part of it that I love the most. And I think it kind of, I really do. I dig trying to figure out how people decide stuff. That's
I can definitely relate. Now, what inspires you today? Whether it's in your work with education, whether it's family or personal life, what really guides you besides just the day to day?
Well, yeah, now I have three small kids, so that obviously it changes a lot of perspectives. In the sense that you start to think like, okay, what's going to be in 20 years? What's going to be in 15 years? So I think that kind of a little bit ties into the education part, that I'm more engaged in education now on a day-to-day basis than I ever was.
Sure.
In some sense. Sometimes successfully, some less. We did have a couple of scenes today, but I admit. But so that's definitely changed. I think the fact that I've been surrounded by both, at home. My family obviously gives me a lot of inspiration. They try to improve myself, but I've also been very fortunate to be surrounded by so many talented, motivated, and successful people. A lot of them originated from the gaming industry, and in Israel and gaming, a lot of interesting things spawned out of that. Plus here, I live here in the Czech Republic for 10 years. I was literally after 2 years here, I met randomly at a birthday party, a guy that turned out to, is now in the process of becoming probably the most interesting Czech startup ever. And I was very fortunate to meet, and it's a company called Mews, hotel software, stuff like that. So somehow I'm very fortunate to end up, so that's something I'm super grateful for. That it's networking somehow works. I don't know how.
Definitely. And obviously it sounds like, going back to selling stereos, it's all about the relationship building, and it's not just networking, but it's actually understanding people's needs. And it sounds that a big part of the reason for your success across the different endeavors all the way up to now, it's this ability to just understand why people make decisions and what guides them and what frustrates them, and how to help them either compare stereo equipment or compare what to do with their life. And I think that's really remarkable. Oli, what are 3 words that you would use to describe yourself?
Wow, I should have prepared for this more. This is a tough one.
No, okay. I love the spontaneity.
No, I've been told that I'm the worst at giving myself compliments. I don't know if it's just going to come out like a good thing. I think that's something that
you can choose bad words as well. I also enjoy those.
I think that I try to be very honest. So I think honesty would be a word, and honest is not just about just telling the truth, but honest to myself.
Yeah.
And on a professional level, I try to be very honest of what I think I can do, but more importantly, what I can't do. And I admit, and there are, especially on we talked about running a big company. At peak, I ran a company that had 450 people in it, and admittedly, looking back, there are people that are better at that than me. And this founder thing it took me to a place, but I honestly had to look at myself and say, okay, let's bring somebody else that does this for a living, right? So that's one word. Another word is maybe, I don't know, how would you describe someone that just doesn't mind trying anything? Adventurous?
Adventure. I'll take adventurous.
Yeah.
I'll call it doer.
Yeah, like somebody will come up to me and say, hey, you want to do this? Like, okay. And like it does.
Immediately, okay, and now let's think through how to do it. I love it.
Worst case with my wife, do you want to try the zip line? I'm like, yeah, okay. She regretted it. She didn't think I'm going to say okay. Last one. Okay, I'm going to try for one more word. I think that maybe dedicated. I try to be really dedicated to what I do. I don't like doing things half-assed. Like, and that's why I sat on the fence for a while, thinking about what to do. Yeah, not enough. Maybe not enough. I did lose that over/under bet, but if I decide if I do this, I'm doing it, right? Yeah,
I love it. And
okay, can I add one more mini word? Let's call it a half word.
100%. Yes.
Okay, so I think the half word is like I don't know what word is it, but I like to keep things in proportion, and that's tied into the family part. And for example,
like perspective.
From perspective, yeah. Like sometimes this is something that I kind of grew into in the last 20 years. I think that I look at a computer, oh my God, something's not working with it. It's work. It'll be fine. We'll fix it. I used to get a lot more stressed about things. I think I'm fixing that on a daily basis. But I try home life balance, the biggest cliche in the world, but I live it. So I just came back from the park like literally half an hour ago. So
I love it. Oli, thank you very, very much. This is so enjoyable. Thank you for your time and your energy and inspiration, and stay safe and stay healthy.